Hey, welcome back. I've seen candidates lose job offers in the first 90 seconds of an interview. Most people don't realize it, but one wrong sentence can completely ruin your chances. That's why we need to talk about top red flags in behavioral interviews, why companies care so much about these signals, and how you can prepare to avoid those pitfalls. By the way, if you appreciate me breaking down topics like this one, hit the like button. Okay, let's start with the first red flag, complaining about a previous company or manager. You should definitely avoid doing that. Don't say things like, "You'll be shocked to hear what my last manager did." It is acceptable in a conversation with a friend, but not in an interview. If you do this, you can come across as confrontational, arrogant, and difficult to work with. It's better to avoid negativity and blaming others. You don't have to share everything in your interview. Your goal is to present your strengths and accomplishments. If you still need to explain why your previous environment was challenging, you can do it, but tweak it in a professional way. For example, I successfully navigated difficult leadership style for 3 years, but over time I realized that it was limiting my growth. So I decided to look for a company that's better aligned with my values and where I can contribute more. This way you stay honest, you provide some background about your situation, but at the same time you focus on your growth, not blaming others. Okay, the next red flag is rambling. I've interviewed a lot of candidates who really struggled to stay on point. For example, for a question like, "Tell me about a time you had to debug a production issue under pressure," some candidates gave me a lot of unnecessary details and context, but most importantly, they didn't focus on specific actions they did to actually resolve the issue, keep stakeholders informed, and prevent similar issues from happening in the future. So don't be too vague in your answers. Give enough specific details so the interviewer understands what actually happened and what you did. One way to structure your story to stay focused is to use the STAR method: situation, task, actions, and result. So you start with explaining the situation and your task or goal, then go into the main part, specific actions that you did, and finish up with result. About 70% of your story should be about actions. Also, aim for 2 to 3 minutes per each story. It's important to understand here that this approach is a guideline, not a script. So the goal here is to make your answers clear and focused, not robotic. Another small tip here is that you should focus on your most recent experience. That means in your stories, please stick to last 3 to 5 years of experience. Okay, let's move on to the red flag number 3, not showing ownership. This is about when candidates talk too much about the team but forget to explain what they personally did. You want to show both sides in your interview, that you're a team player and also that you took action and made things happen. A big thing to watch here is the word "we." It's not necessarily a bad thing to say. You can say it to give some context, but then you need to quickly switch to "I." For example, we as a team decided to improve testability and I led the effort to write unit tests. So in this example, focus is on what you did, even though it was a team effort. Interviewers care about ownership because they want to know that you can take responsibility and drive results. Saying only things like "we did this" makes it actually harder for them to see this. Remember that it is your interview and you're the one getting hired, not your team. So focus on I, your actions, and show that you can lead projects and take responsibility. Okay, cool. The next red flag is reading answers from screen. You'd be surprised, but I've seen this many times. I ask a candidate something common like, "Tell me about the project you led from start to finish." And the person literally starts to read off their answer off screen word for word. And obviously it is very noticeable. So my advice here is to answer from your head, not script. You can have short bullet points written somewhere if you're struggling to remember details. You can glance at them sometimes. That's totally fine. Another important advice here is to be genuine. Don't lie or manipulate facts. You need to present your real self, including your strengths and weaknesses, based on your actual experience. So don't invent stories or use scripted answers from the internet because it can backfire. Experienced interviewers have seen those questions and answers many times. It is much better to give weak answer but with strong learning experience than some completely fake but perfect example. If you talk about some issue or weakness and how you overcame it, it can be very valuable for an interviewer. Of course, you clean up your stories and remove unnecessary details, but those should be your real stories. By the way, for a behavioral interview, it is really important to look at the camera to create a connection with the interviewer. If you have two monitors, you don't want to be looking in a completely different direction. Just imagine how weird that looks for your interviewer. I have a small hack that I use for my one-to-one calls. So I have an external monitor and a camera hooked on top of it. So when I have my video calls, I usually minimize the window with the person's face and place it at the top of my screen, right under the webcam. This way, when I look at the other person's face, I also look toward my webcam, and it creates a feeling that I'm looking at them, not off to the side. Okay, the last red flag that I want to cover today is inability to handle conflict constructively. This comes up a lot in software engineering interviews because disagreements are common. Different people have different ways to solving issues. Some candidates, when faced with a disagreement or conflict, shut down, ignore the problem, and get frustrated. And over time, this frustration builds into resentment. Resentment toward their teammates or even the company. And this is a huge red flag for interviewers. But strong candidates handle the conflict differently. First of all, they ask themselves a question: is this conflict even important? Does it affect company's business? If yes, then they bring this question up and discuss openly. They try to understand other person's viewpoint and then they try to find common ground. So they stay professional, focus on data, facts, and impact, not on emotions. An example question here is: tell me about a time when you disagreed with a technical decision and what did you do about it? Your answer here should show that you can navigate disagreements professionally and work toward a solution. So focus on the actions you personally took to understand the other side, propose alternatives, and resolve the conflict constructively. Remember that interviewers are looking for someone who can disagree, but without being difficult. I would love to hear if you've made these 5 or similar mistakes in your behavioral interviews, so write a comment. Alright, thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.